Junkenstein's Revenge is probably one of the best game modes added to Overwatch. It basically turns the game into a roguelike with random mutations that you can get, and there's over 200 different mutations spread across all the different characters available in the game mode. The one problem of which being that there was almost no information online about the different mutations that were available in the game mode, meaning that you don't really know what you're up against, which can be a problem, but also you don't really know what you should be building towards and what would be fun, and what kind of characters might have mutations that you would want to play with. I mean, the only actual source of information I was able to find was a random Chinese wiki that has one of the passives listed as no joke or no candy. That's probably one of the best names I've ever heard, better than what's used in game. You also have some other classics like Heat Seeking Hide and Seek and Terrible Air Superiority. I like that one. God, I wish Pharah was actually like that sometimes. So I spent an entire weekend going through and trying to collect every single mutation available in the game so that I could actually just make a video so people would have an easy resource they could look through to see what characters offer, what they might need to look out for that the enemy team could have, and what characters might just be really fun to play and mess around with. Now, my initial idea was to rank this and talk about the synergies that some of these have, but that video would actually end up being about 2 hours long, so this is just a very quick version where I'm just going to go through every single mutation so that people can just know what to look for. I'll give a couple of tips for ones I think are especially strong, but in general, just know that the ones that impact your ultimate ability are usually not going to be that good to take, just because of how the game mode is set up. It's King of the Hill, every map is going to be King of the Hill, and it's going to be a best of 5. But the biggest thing is that the capture progress ticks up 50% faster compared to the normal King of the Hill game mode, so the games will feel a lot faster, even if they are best of 5 and not best of 3. They should be about the same amount of time, but this also means that you're actually pretty unlikely to build up your ultimate over the course of a round before, you go to a new point and your ultimate charge gets reset. Which is especially sad because the ultimates are sometimes some of the more fun mutations that are available, but this is just a heads up. You can definitely pick up one of these mutations if you just want to have fun. There's no reason to try and min-max the fuck out of this game mode unless that's just how you want to play it. But just a warning that you might not want to build only your ultimate and just pick up the one fun mutation that has some kind of really unique effect on your ultimate. But yeah, onto more specifics on the game mode. Each character has 20 mutations that are available to them, 5 commons, 5 rares, 5 epics, and 5 legendaries. The further you get into the game mode, the more likely it is that legendary and other higher rarity mutations will be made available to you, so keep that in mind. It's not super likely that you're going to be getting a legendary on your first round of mutations, but by the 3rd or the 4th, it's pretty likely you'll see at least one of them, unless you just get really unlucky. You start the game off with a choice between 4 different mutations, and you have 2 mutation slots available, so you can take 2 of them. After that, at the start of each round, you will get 1 additional mutation slot, and be given a choice between 4 different mutations that you can take. But you can also discard one of your previous mutations and take another new one to fill in that slot. So discarding is good. Don't think that's bad. It just lets you swap out one of your old mutations for a new one from the new set of 4 mutations. And you get 1 discard every round. They don't stack. So use them if you have a mutation you don't like, or you just think there's something else that's offered that's better. You can always just dump an old one and pick up a new one. Just make sure to use your discards. I've seen a lot of people ignore them because they think they just get rid of a mutation. But no, they do let you pick a new mutation from your available 4 to fill in that empty slot. So it's really good. Use your discards to make your build better and actually tweak it. So now with the basics of the game mode out of the way, I'm just gonna speed run through every single character's mutations. No analysis on different synergies or trying to rank them, because I tried that and by the time I got through the 3rd character, an hour had passed. So this is just gonna be a quick video. Maybe I can do another actually ranking them and talking about the fun synergies that you can do. But let's start with the tanks. D.va. Common number 1 is Monstrous Matrix. Defense matrix size increased by 40%. Common number 2, Fast and Ferocious. Fusion cannons deal 20% increased damage while boosters are active. I don't think it's that good. Common number 3, Mischievous Missiles. Micro missile projectiles travel 20% faster. Also not that good. Common number 4. Fast Fury. While firing fusion cannons, movement speed penalty is reduced by 50%. This one's pretty good. Full Moon's Boon. Health is increased by 75. For her rares, you have Vampiric Matrix. Heal 15% of damage blocked by Defense Matrix. Rare 2 is Missile Swarm. Number of micro missiles launched increased by 20%. Rare 3 is Ticking Clock. Self-destruct ultimate cost reduced by 20%. This one's a necessity if you're trying to build up your ultimate so that you can actually get it in a reasonable amount of time. But outside of that, no, not that good. Rare 4 is Booster Bass. While boosters are active, increase quick melee damage by 100%. Rare 5 is Macabre Matrix. Damage dealt regenerates 15% of Defense Matrix charge. This also impacts micro missiles, which you can use while Defense Matrix is active, meaning that you are able to regenerate your Defense Matrix a little bit while you are actively using it, which is pretty funny. D.va's Epic 1 is Double Devil. Gain an additional 1 ability charge of Micro Missile. Her Epic 2 is Jump Scare. Mech automatically explodes when destroyed for 200 damage in an 8-meter radius. Basically, think of it like the same exact thing as when you use your ultimate when your mech is destroyed. It just kind of makes the same exact little thing and then will explode after a short delay. Epic number 3 is No Escape. Fusion Cannon spread is significantly reduced, but the rate of fire is slowed. Weapon damage is increased by 100%. This one is actually really unique and fun to play around with. It basically turns D.va from a dive character into more of like a poke hero. She's like a sniper now. It's pretty fun. Epic 4 is Vampiric Booster. Booster impacts grant 25 armor for 5 seconds. Epic 5 is Devouring Matrix. Enemies within Defense Matrix take 15% increased damage from all sources. Her legendary 1 is Repulsive Missiles. Micro missiles deal 15% increased damage with strong knockback and 25% increased explosion radius. Her legendary 2 is Anti-Boost. Enemies hit by boosters receive a debuff that prevents healing for 1.5 seconds. Legendary 3 is Beast's Hunger. Gain 10% of damage blocked by Defense Matrix as ultimate charge. Legendary 4 is Self-Destruct Siphon. Self-destruct pulls in nearby enemies for 2 seconds, but increases detonation time by 30%. And of course our final legendary, Cornered Fox. Attack speed and damage are increased up to 30% based on missing health. Next on to everyone's favorite horse, that's sarcasm if you couldn't tell. Orisa. Common 1, Hypnotizing Spin. Javelin spin duration increased by 30%. Common 2, Hurried Haunt. Movement speed increased by 15% while above 50% health. Common 3 is Bolting Broomstick. Energy Javelin projectile speed increased by 20%. Common 4 is Conjurer's Cloak. Fortify heals 15% of max health upon activation. Common 5 is Fortifright. Fortify duration increased by 30%. Now for the rares. Waning Whirlwind. Javelin Spin instantly depletes 50% of max augmented fusion drivers overheat meter. I think this one and the next one are kind of bad because just using the abilities is already going to cause time to pass while you're not firing your weapon because you are using the ability, which just naturally already depletes your overheat meter by a decent amount. Rare 2 is Chilling Blow. Energy Javelin instantly depletes 50% of augmented fusion drivers overheat meter. Rare 3 is Void Sent Javelin. Energy Javelin deals 25% more damage to enemies further than 12 meters and increases knockback by 50%. Take this, there's a future Javelin ability that also increases knockback. Use this on any map that has environmentals. Absolutely send people to the Shadow Realm. It is very fun. Rare 4 is Arcane Energy. Energy Javelin has 15% reduced cooldown. And Rare 5 is Mirror Ward. Javelin Spin deflects projectiles and increases damage of deflected projectiles by 15%. You can tell if an Orisa has this because her Javelin Spin will have little like circles around the edge. It'll look different than how it normally does. And this one is also really good. You still must always take it. But epic number 1. Violence Begotten. Criticals increase attack speed by 6% for 5 seconds. Stacks up to 10 times, so you can get up to a 60% increase in attack speed. Epic 2 is Grim Command. While using Fortify, self and nearby allies gain 30% movement speed. Really good. Epic 3, Repulsive Javelin. Energy Javelin knocks back 50% more and deals 25% more damage. This one is pretty fucking crazy, especially when paired with the previous one. Epic 4 is Mega Monster. Gain 200% over health while being 35% slower. This one is very poorly worded. If you can tell from the picture on it, it does impact only Fortify. They don't say it, but this is a Fortify ability. You just gain 200% more overhealth when using Fortify, and it makes you 35% slower. So basically you get 200 extra overhealth when using Fortify in exchange for being really fucking slow during it. I don't think it's that good because of that. Epic 5 is Summoning Circle. Terra Surge's max damage ceiling and charge speed increased by 25%. Legendary 1, Flight by Night. While casting Javelin Spin, Orisa gains free flight and 10% increased movement speed. It's a pretty fun one to mess around with. I would definitely recommend you take this if you ever see it available. Legendary 2, Serad Curse. When using Fortify, nearby allies gain 75 armor and become unstoppable. Really fucking good if you see people just randomly become unstoppable or gain a bunch of armor. This is why. It's really fucking good. Legendary 3 is Spooky Charger. Terra Surge drops a supercharger that increases the damage of nearby teammates, deal by 50% for 15 seconds. This one actually has a typo. That's not proper English. It just gives her old ultimate in addition to her Terra Surge ultimate, which I think is pretty fun. Legendary 4 is Soul Snare. Damage done with Javelin Spin. Decreases Fortify cooldown. Really good if you try and build around Javelin Spin, and this is a way to chain it into a lot of, survivability with just being able to get your Fortify back quickly. And her final legendary is Vampiric Javelin. Dealing damage with energy, Javelin recovers 100 health. Next on to everyone's favorite Reddit hero, Reinhardt. Common 1, Racing Charge. Charge speed increased by 35%. Common 2, Early Grave. Earthshatter ultimate cost reduced by 25%. Common 3, Vampiric Strike. Fire Strike heals you for 25% of damage dealt. Common 4, Fearsome Frenzy. Rocket Hammer attack speed increased by 10% for 3 seconds after each consecutive hit, stacking up to 3 times. And Common 5 is Unrelenting March. Movement speed penalty while using barrier fields is reduced by 85%. I think this one's pretty underrated. Fast Reinhardt is good Reinhardt, and also very fun to just walk into people with a barrier. Next on to his rare mutations. Kinetic Kindling. Rocket Hammer reduces Fire Strike cooldown by 15% per hit. Rare 2 is Pain Exchange. Reduces Fire Strike's cooldown for every 200 damage blocked by barrier field. Rare 3 is Hellfire Strike. Fire Strike projectile width increased by 25%. Rare 4 is Demonic Defense. Barrier field health is increased by 25%. And size increased by 20%. And Rare 5 is Petrified. Earthshatter stun duration increased by 25%. Next on to his epics. Epic 1 is Bone Satyr. Pinned enemies receive 25% more damage for 4 seconds. Epic 2 is Macabre Transfusion. Barrier field heals nearby allies within 6 meters for 30% of the damage it absorbs. Epic 3 is Infernal Arsenal. Fire Strike gains an additional charge. Cooldown is increased by 30%. I feel like this one's kind of a trap. You already have 2 charges of Fire Strike, that's good enough. I don't think you need another one, especially at the cost of increasing your cooldown by 30%. Epic 4 is Scorched Earth. Fire Strike leaves a fiery trail on the ground that burns enemies for 30 damage. I feel like this one's pretty good. And then Demon's Due. Rocket Hammer and Fire Strike restore 10% barrier field health per hit. Also pretty good. His legendary 1 is Demonic Fury. Attack speed and damage are increased up to 25% based on missing health. Legendary 2 is Annihilation. Charge impacts create an explosion in 3-meter radius. Legendary 3 is Spectral Shield. Barrier field is active during charge, increased knockback by 25% and knockback damage by 100%. Legendary 4 is Blazing Grave. For 3 seconds after Earthshatter, Rocket Hammer launches a Fire Strike with every swing. Again, one I think is really fun to play with, but also it's your ultimate. But it'll be worth it to take it and just have fun, trust me. It's just too bad that you're not super likely to get your ultimate in a lot of rounds. And finally, for Reinhardt's legendary 5, he did the Monster Bass. The Monster Bass? It was a really bad crash. But gains Sealed Bass. He becomes Big Brigitte, an infinitely better character than Reinhardt is. With Barrier Field active, use quick melee to damage and stun nearby enemies. 8-second cooldown. This is just fun. It's just a whole new ability. Always take this if it's available. It's just fun to mess around with. Moving on to the DPS heroes, we have EASH. Common 1, Ghastly Spurs. Increases movement speed by 25% for 3 seconds after using Coach Gun. Common 2 is Viper's Fangs. increases the Viper magazine size by 25%. Common 3 is Hocus Pocus. Shooting dynamite reloads 3 bullets and reduces dynamite's cooldown by 5 seconds. Common 4 is Headhunter. Hipfire shots increase the damage of the next aim down sight shot by 10%, up to a maximum of 100%. Resets on reload. I feel like this one isn't that good. There are a lot of other ways to increase the weapon damage. Common 5, Deadlock Devotion, removes the movement speed penalty while aiming down sights. Next up for the rares, Viper's Venom decreases max ammo by 50%, but increases damage by 30%. I feel like this is like the cornerstone for Ashe builds. You just go for like insta-kills on her weapon, and that's a good way to do so. Rare 2 is Brimstone. Deal mini crits to burning enemies, which I'm assuming is a 1.5 times critical, as opposed to the standard 2 times damage critical hit. Rare 3 is Double Trouble. Coach Gun gains 1 more charge. Rare 4 is Shape Shifting. Shooting from a distance further than 10 meters increases aimed damage by 20%. And being closer than 10 meters increases hipfire damage by 20%. So again, another really good ranged way to increase your damage output. And Rare 5 is Trial by Fire. Damage to burning targets earns an additional 25% ultimate charge. Next up for Epic 1 is Beelzebub's Burn. Bob stays 1 second longer, creates an explosion on landing, and sets enemies on fire on impact. Epic 2 is Creepy Combustion. After firing Coach Gun, the Viper reloads 2 bullets. The Viper's next 2 shots deal 50% burn damage over 2.5 seconds. Epic 3 is Ritual Grounds. If dynamite explodes on the ground, it creates a burning area that damages enemies. Epic 4, Viper's Obsession. When the Viper hits the same target, deal 20% more damage. And then Epic 5 is Fractured Fire. Dynamite explodes into 3 smaller dynamites. Next for legendaries, we have Second Soul. If Ashe receives lethal damage while Bob is active, Bob is destroyed and Ashe becomes unkillable for 3 seconds. Legendary 2 is Soul Siphon. Critical hits automatically refill 1 bullet in the magazine. This one I want to talk about a little bit. I feel like it's kind of a trap. It seems really good, but if you're building for damage and you're getting critical hits, you're not going to need that many bullets because you're just going to be like evaporating people. And if you're missing and you would actually need those extra bullets, then you're not getting critical hits, so you're not really refilling bullets in the magazine. Maybe for like a hip fire spam build, that could be a really good option. But if you're building for like an aim down sights, critical hit, insta-kill build, there are better ways like the Coach Gun, Reload, Mutation, and Hocus Pocus, the Dynamite Reload Mutation. There are just better ways to get more bullets in your gun without having to manually reload. Legendary 3 is Demon's Ward. When Bob stops, he activates Winston's shield around him. Good that Winston gave him a present for his birthday. Bob really deserved something special this year, and I think that Winston really delivered on that front. Legendary 4 is Chain Reaction. If a target dies while burning, it causes another dynamite explosion. And Legendary 5, Fire and Fury. The Viper shots on burning targets reduces the cooldowns of Coach Gun and Dynamite by 5%. I don't think this is that good. 5% is not a lot. And a lot of other mutations are a lot better than that. The next DPS we have is Genji. His common 1 is Counter Spell. Deflect duration is increased by 1.5 seconds. Common 2 is Eerie Escape. Swift Strike cooldown is reduced by 40% if it deals no damage. So yeah, pretty good if you like using Swift Strike for movement, like some kind of savage. Then yeah, this is definitely an option available to you so that you can use it more often. Common 3 is Scary Speed. Shuriken critical hits increase attack speed by 2% up to 15 stacks for 10 seconds. Next you have Dark Ambush, deal 15% more damage to enemies struck from behind. And Common 5 is Vicious Cycle. Swift Strike grants 3 ammo per enemy damaged. For his rares you have Vampiric Deflect. Deflect heals you for 10% of your maximum health per second. Rare 2 is Spectral Smoke. When taking fatal damage, activate a smoke bomb to gain invisibility and unkillable for 3 seconds. Can only use 1 times per round. And that last part, I feel like is important because it makes it kind of really bad. Oftentimes, it's just gonna randomly activate and then you just don't have anything for the rest of the round. It's just really weird. I don't really like how it's only 1 time per round. I feel like that really makes it not as good. Rare 3 is Death's Grasp. Dealing damage with Swift Strike will cause the next quick melee to fire a piercing projectile that deals 100% of quick melee damage. Fun and interesting to use, but I don't think it's that good. Rare 4 is Karma. Deflected projectiles deal 25% increased damage. And Rare 5 is Leery Leap. Double jump can be used a second time while airborne, and movement speed increased by 15%. I feel like this one is pretty good and also just really fun to use because you get a triple jump. Next up for his epics, Dreadful Dragon. Dragon Blade's first 3 hits increase attack speed for 15% each and increases duration for 1.5 seconds. Epic 2, Twisted Power. While deflect is active, press primary fire to briefly make any projectile deflected deal 150% more damage. So kind of like a skill-based deflect upgrade, where you can kind of parry projectiles to get more damage out of them. Epic 3 is Swarming Shurikens. Swift Strike will cause the next 3 Shuriken primary fire projectiles to seek out enemies. This one is really cool. It also gives you a cool reticle when you have it active. So don't get confused if you see a little marker appear on an enemy after you Swift Strike. If you pick this up, that just means that that enemy is the target of your homing projectiles. Epic 4 is Bitter Revenge. Deflect causes the next Swift Strike to deal up to 50% more damage within 8 seconds based on the damage prevented. And Epic 5 is Sanguine Strike. Swift Strike can deflect projectiles and will wound the first enemy hit for 75 health in 3 seconds. His legendary one is Dragon's Breath. Dragon Blade attacks also fire a large piercing projectile, dealing 100% of its damage. Really fun to use. It sucks that you just don't get ultimates that often in this game mode. You can go an entire round without getting one easily. And you don't even get this until later in the game where, you know, one team might just be rolling the other and neither team is really going to be able to build an ultimate. Especially the team that's on the receiving end of the getting stomped if you just happen to have a bad matchup, or you don't know how to deal with whatever the enemy team is building as their character. Legendary 2 is Scary Strikes. Swift Strike gains 1 additional charge, but with a 30% longer cooldown that can't be reset by eliminations. I don't like this. I feel like it maybe has a place as some kind of like double Swift Strike just nukes someone at the start of a fight. But aside from that, I think it just makes him less fun. Sure, you get an extra charge of Swift Strike, but it's on a longer cooldown now. And you also don't get, you know, Swift Strike resets anymore. I feel like it just kind of slows him down a little bit, even though you can, like, double Swift Strike someone. Legendary 3 is Master Ward. Deflect now protects from all directions. Cooldown is increased by 5 seconds. I feel like it's kind of funny, but I also don't think it's super useful. Unless you're like really into feeding and just jumping in the middle of the enemy team and getting attacked from all angles. Usually you can just, you know, look at someone's general direction and get the deflect. The hitbox on it is pretty massive, and it does also come at the cost of, you know, an increased cooldown as well. Legendary 4 is Shuriken Storm. Deflect launches a homing shuriken to the attacker after deflecting a projectile, which will deal 50% of shuriken damage. And Legendary 5 is Unfinished Business. Dealing 200 damage with primary fire causes the next use of secondary fire to launch 9 shurikens that mini crit. I feel like this is like a close range nuke if you pick this up. You just deal some damage with your primary fire and poke, and then you just try and get right up next to someone and just unload an entire 9 mini crit shurikens into their body. On to the next DPS in the roster, we have Kiriko. No, I'm fucking with you. It's Pharah, everyone's favorite annoying spam flying character. Her first common is Concussive Cursed. It gains 1 extra charge of Concussive Blast. Common 2 is Ectoplasm. Fuel regenerates twice as fast. Common 3 is Monstrous Munificence. Increase Pharah's max ammo by 30%. Common 4 is Fueled Frenzy, increases movement speed by 25% when spending fuel, increases her max fuel by 30%. And Common 5 is Scarial Superiority. After Jump Jets and Jet Dash, Pharah deals 20% more damage for 5 seconds. Her rares are Rocket Revival. While in the air, regenerates 1 rocket every 3 seconds. Rare 2 is Dark Armor. Convert 50% of Pharah's health to sealed health, and sealed health will start recovering after 1.5 seconds of no damage. So just giving Pharah some of her own sustain. The funniest thing is that because Pharah is a 225 health hero, and the game, for some reason, while it can do damage in decimals, it can't do health in decimals. So it will instead give you 226 health. So brand new undiscovered breakpoint for Pharah. Picking this up will give her an extra 1 health. Rare 3 is Jet O Lanterns, you get an extra charge of Jump Jet. Rare 4 is Apparition's Aura. Jump Jet deals 30 damage and pushes enemies around you. The enemy in front of you is pulled up with you, and it has a 6-meter radius. And you will get a little, like, Mercy Guardian Angel kind of marker on the enemy if they are close enough for that being pulled up with you effect to take place. And Rare 5 is Repulsive Blast, increases Concussive Blast knockback by 50%. Onto her epics, you have Frightful Impact. Direct hits from rockets increase rockets' explosive damage by 50% for 2 seconds. So the splash damage of her rockets will go from 80 to 120, meaning the total damage from a direct hit would go from being 120 to 160 damage. Her epic 2 is Rocket Swarm, increases the amount of mini rockets that launch by 30%, including rocket barrage. Epic 3 is Braving Darkness. While performing movement abilities, gain overhealth equal to 30% of max HP for 3 seconds. I think this one's pretty damn good. Epic 4 is Painful Pattern. Direct hits reduce cooldowns by 0.5 seconds. And Epic 5 is Lingering Presence. Jump Jets, Jet Dash, and Haunting Entrance deploy 3 mini rockets towards the direction you are facing. Next onto her legendaries, we have Concussive Vortex. Concussive Blast creates a vortex that pushes back your enemies. Basically, the Concussive Blast will just stick into the ground wherever you place it, and it will just continually knock back enemies. Legendary 2 is Fearsome Flight. Pharah gains free flight during her ultimate. Legendary 3 is Haunting Entrance. Crouching midair slams Pharah to the ground, deals 60 damage in a 6-meter radius, and pushes enemies up. Gain 20% fuel for every enemy hit. This is fun, but also really bad, because if you try and use this on a group of enemies, you will just fucking die. It would actually be decent if it gave you overhealth per enemy hit, but instead it gives you fuel, which, you know, yeah, fuel is really gonna help me get out of the situation when I just, you know, body slam into the entire enemy team. So yeah, fun to use, but not really good, especially considering there's a lot of end to lag with the animation and stuff like that, and it's just really slow. It almost will always be like a suicide maneuver that only deals 60 damage. But you know, it's fun, and that's the point of the game mode, is to have fun. You don't need to be optimal, but if you're getting steamrolled, maybe don't take this because it's not going to be that helpful. Legendary 4 is the Haunt Begins. Mini rockets place a marked debuff on enemies that last 5 seconds. A marked enemy will take 20% more damage. Fun, but only take this if you have Lingering Presence first, which will, you know, deploy mini rockets whenever you use a movement ability, Jump Jet and Jet Dash, and Haunting Entrance, even though it's not that good. But if you don't have Lingering Presence, then this only impacts your ultimate, which is not really that useful. So yeah, take this only if you have the other mutation already. And then her final legendary is Boom. Rockets have 30% bigger area of effect. The explosion is just bigger. Pretty fun. Next up, for everyone's favorite friendly ghost, Casper. No, it's Repper. Repper's first common is Precise Pain. Hellfire Shotgun spread reduced by 15%, and fall-off range increased by 25%. So just a little bit more range to your Repper. Common number 2 is Ghostly Gat. Wraith form movement speed bonus increased by 20% due to the clap of his ass cheeks generating a lot of forward thrust. Common 3 is Behind You. Canonically, he's giving Soldier 76 backshots in the image, which is pretty cool representation for Overwatch to have. Hellfire Shotguns deal 15% more damage when hitting enemies from behind. Common 4 is Furious Fire. Well below 50% health, Hellfire Shotgun's damage has increased by 15%. And common number 5 is Swift Shadow. Shadow Step cast time reduced by 35%. For his rares, we have Umbral Cloak. Shadow Step grants 25% of max health as overhealth while being cast. Rare 2 is Retribution. The Reapening passive lifesteal increases by 30% while below 50% health. Rare 3 is Enduring Wraith. Wraith form duration increased by 33%. And then Rare 4 is Wraith of Fire. Gain 20% attack speed for 3 seconds after leaving Wraith form. I feel like this is kind of a trap, as usually you want to try and get out with Wraith form, but this wants you to engage with it. But I mean, if you can upgrade your Shadow Step so that it's good at escaping instead of Wraith form, I feel like you can kind of just swap the two abilities and be like, okay, now I'm going to engage with this and exit it with this increased attack speed, nuke someone, and then try and Shadow Step out. Rare 5 is Shadow Strider. Shadow Step gains an additional charge, but cooldown is increased by 30%. Now for his epics, Epic 1 is Dance of Death. Death Blossom no longer has movement speed penalty, and now grants 25% bonus movement speed. So pretty fucking crazy. I feel like this is one of the better ultimate ability ones, because it makes Death Blossom an actual threat. Not only do you no longer have the movement speed penalty, but you instead get a movement speed bonus. Epic 2 is Wraith Flight. Wraith form grants free flight while active. During Wraith form, gain 10% movement speed. This one is amazing. It's very fun, very goofy, and also just kind of good. You can just Wraith form up to high ground if you want to. If they have a Pharah on the enemy team, you can just Wraith form into the air and try and kill her. It's fun, and it's just really funny. It's probably one of the best ones to take as Reaper. Epic 5 is Soul Glutton. The Reaping passive grants overhealth while lifestealing at full health up to 25% of max health for 4 seconds. Epic 4 is Grim Shroud. Shadow Step teleport causes nearby enemies within 6-meter radius to be slowed by 25% for 4 seconds. I feel like it's not that useful because you have to Shadow Step directly into the middle of the enemy team. But if you have some stuff built for Shadow Step, I feel like this can work. And then Epic 5, we have Night Shade. Wraith form affects enemies when passing through them, increases their damage taken by 20% for 3 seconds. Next on to his Legendary. Legendary 1 is Soul Harvest. Players eliminated drop a Soul Globe, which can be picked up to gain 15% ultimate charge. This is actually really good and actually makes it viable to run Reaper with a lot of his ultimate mutations, because this is actually just a good way to get your ultimate pretty quickly. You can get it after one fight, you get one elimination, that's just a bonus 15% ultimate charge, which is pretty good. Legendary 2 is Toxic Aura. After Wraith form ends, Reaper deals 25 damage to nearby enemies each second for 3 seconds. Final blows extend the effect by 1 second. He becomes Ramatra and makes everybody else suffer as he has. Legendary 3 is Inescapable Death. Death Blossom pulls in nearby targets beyond its range, up to 40% additional range. So also really good one with his ultimate, which you can actually build towards with Reaper due to the Soul Harvest passive. It just drags people in whenever you ult. People who aren't in range of it, they're suddenly in range of it now, and that's their problem. Next, Legendary 4, you have Vampiric Aura. The Reaping passive affects nearby allies within 12 meters. Also just like a really, really good ability. Probably his best mutation that's available to him. It's crazy good. The exact opposite would be his Legendary 5, Death's Due. Hellfire shotguns deal lucky critical damage to enemies less than 45% health. I feel like lucky critical damage just means that it's a guaranteed critical hit even if it's not getting them in the head, but it's only to enemies with less than 45% health. At that point, you're probably going to be killing whatever you are shooting at anyways, so I don't think it's that useful. Definitely not as useful as some of the other mutations that are available, unfortunately. And then for the final DPS hero, we have Rapper's boyfriend, Soldier 79. Common 1 is Trick and Treat. After firing a Helix rocket, attack speed is increased by 15% for 1.5 seconds. Common 2 is Wicked Vigor. Health is increased by 20%. This is really good, for reasons I will get into. Common 3 is Healing Ward. Reduces incoming damage by 20% while in the biotic field. And if you can't tell, I'm really biased, and I think that building a biotic field build for Soldier and taking Wicked Vigor to get additional health is really, really good. I feel like biotic field builds are really funny and work incredibly well with all of the passive buffs you can have it give you. Like, 20% less damage taken. Monstrous Magazine increases pulse rifles max ammo by 5. Common 5, Viral Violence. Self and teammates gain 50% increased reload speed. And onto his rares. Rare 1 is Defense of the Damned. Biotic field grants 75 shield to all allies while the biotic field is active. And I don't think that you need to be in the biotic field to get the effect. Maybe you have to touch it, but once you leave it, I think you keep the sealed health, which is kind of crazy. Rare 2 is Close Encounter, deal 20% more damage to enemies within 12 meters. Rare 3 is Spectral Sprint, after sprinting for 3 seconds, ammo is reloaded automatically. Rare 4 is Immolation, Helix Rocket, damage applies a burn, dealing 60 damage over 6 seconds. And then Rare 5 is Telltale Heartbeat, Biotic Field pulses every 1 second, damaging enemies in its area, and the first pulse knocks back enemies. This is probably like the worst of the Biotic Field upgrades. You can leave this one if you try and do a Biotic Field build. Epic 1, You Can Run. While Tactical Visor is active, reveal all enemies behind walls. I don't think this is that good. Epic 2 is Hindered Horror. Direct hits with Helix Rocket slow target by 35% for 3 seconds. Epic 3 is Portable Potion. Biotic Field moves with you and provides 10% more health. This isn't 10% more healing. It actually gives you 10% more maximum health whenever you use it. You just get an extra 25 health, which is again just stacking more health on top of your already existing health modifiers and your sealed modifier. With Wicked Vigor, this and the Defense of the Dam that gives you 75 sealed, your Soldier 76 will have 400 health total, which is a lot. Epic 4 is Consecutive Carnage. While holding primary fire, Heavy Pulse Rifle deals an extra 2% of base damage for every bullet that hits an enemy. Using Helix Rockets will not interrupt this effect. And then Epic 5 is On the Hunt. While sprinting, become unstoppable and reduce damage by 30%. Could be really good if they have a lot of knockback heavy characters, or a lot of abilities that apply knockback, like, you know, they have the Reaper ultimate mutation that pulls in enemies, or, you know, an Orisa with Gigabuff Javelins. You can kind of just use Sprint to tank that sometimes. Legendary 1, Endless Night. Eliminations or assists while Tactical Visor is active, increase the duration of Tactical Visor by 3 seconds. This is the best one. Legendary 2, Potent Potion. Biotic Field's duration is increased by 200%. This almost gives you 100% uptime on your Biotic Field. There's only about a 3-second window where you will not have Biotic Field active if you have Potent Potion. And if you have, you know, all of the other effects that boost Biotic Field and the passive that makes it follow you around, you will constantly be getting healed, constantly have 400 health, and constantly be taking 20% less damage. And I think that that's pretty damn good. Legendary 3 is Hide and Heat Seek. Helix Rockets attempt to home towards the target closest to Soldier 76's reticle. This one's also really, really fun to play with. It's just homing Helix Rockets all the time. I don't know why they haven't given this to his ultimate if they have the technology to do so. Probably because if you play with this, you'll realize it's kind of insanely good against a lot of different characters, because they do not miss. It is very hard to get these things to miss people. And you do get a cool little reticle on your screen, showing the target that's going to home in on. So definitely play Soldier, try and get this mutation. It is very fun. Legendary 4 is Scary Surprise. Every 15 bullets fired from Heavy Pulse Rifle during Tactical Visor also launches a Helix Rocket. This is kind of really bad unless you have the Seeking Helix Rockets from the previous Legendary, because it just happens every time you fire 15 bullets. You'll just lose control and just like be like, I prematurely rocketed, I'm sorry. Please don't think any less of me. So it's hard to actually get value out of the random Helix Rocket he's just going to be throwing out there, unless you have the Seeking passive or mutation. And then you have Pain for Gain. Direct hits with Helix Rockets create a Biotic Field at your position. I don't think this is necessary if you have Potent Potion, because I don't think the Biotic Fields will stack. But if you don't, this is another way to just get really good Biotic Field uptime for a Biotic Field build, especially if you do have the Seeking Helix Rockets. Then these are almost always going to hit and just give you a new field to give you all the passive benefits of having one. So yeah, pretty good. And that is all of the DPS heroes. Now, onto the supports. First up, we have Kiriko, who has one very broken build. In general, all of her mutations are pretty insanely good. I don't think that you can go wrong with a lot of them. Some of them most certainly, just because of how good a lot of them are. Some of them are just not nearly as good, but we'll get to that as I go through them. Common 1 is Unburdened. After throwing a Protection Suzu, attack speed is increased by 20% for 1.5 seconds. Seems insane, but this is probably one of the worst ones compared to everything else that she has. on offer. Common 2, Drawn Together. After teleporting, grant the nearest ally 50 overhealth for 5 seconds. Common 3, Not Your Time. Deliver 25% extra healing to allies below 50% health. Common 4 is Fast Fortune. Kunai projectile speed is increased by 40%. Common 5, Mischief and Movement. Gain a double jump passive, and movement speed is increased by 10%. Really fun to play with, probably one of the cooler passives to use. Next, Rare 1, Twist of Fate. On crit, Swift Step and Protection Suzu cooldowns are reduced by 10%. I don't think this is super useful compared to other stuff that she has. Soothing Step. Swift Step heals nearby allies by 40% of Kiriko's max health. This is pretty crazy because that's almost 100 AoE healing every time you use Swift Step. I don't know if it impacts Kiriko, but even if it doesn't, it's still really good. And if it does, it's even better. Rare 3 is Monstrous Suzu. Protection Suzu projectile speed is increased by 100% and radius is increased by 45%. Okay, but not as good as later things. Rare 4 is Vindictive Vision. Damaging enemies further than 12 meters reveals them for 3 seconds. Frightful Fortune. Every crit adds 4 talismans to Kiriko's next heal at a maximum of 20 talismans. So you just get like a longer heal, kind of. It's a little bit of a weird one. Next onto her epics, which are crazy. String of Fate. Teleport distance is increased by 100%. Crazy good. You can get out of like anywhere with the increased radius. Epic 2. Catastrophic Kunai. Kunai explodes on impact, dealing 20% damage in an area. This is a little bit of a weird one because it's just 20% more AoE damage on your Kunai. I feel like you can still get critical hits even when you have this active. It won't affect the explosion damage, but it will affect the base Kunai damage. But it also seems really inconsistent. Like, you get this, and to me it feels like you get much fewer critical hits. I don't know if it messes with her projectile size and makes it even bigger, so that you're less likely to get critical hits due to hitting, you know, the arms, the shoulders, the chest first. But without that, they smoothed out her damage several times in recent patches, so this is just a really good upgrade, especially with another upgrade we have later. This is like one of the best ones she has. Just know that from trying this out, it feels like you're not going to be getting as many critical hits if you do pick this up. But that could just be me having a mental breakdown. But my friend said the same thing when he tried it out. So I don't know, take that with a grain of salt. This might actually make it harder to get criticals. Epic 3 is the Chariot. Healing Ofuda gives allies 20% increased attack speed for 1.5 seconds on heal. Epic 4 is Self-Realization. Protection Suzu heals Kiriko for an extra 80 health and grants 25% movement speed for 2 seconds. So now Suzu is better at getting you out, which it was already really good at. Epic 5 is Spirit World's Gift. Kitsune Rest heals allies by 75 health per second, which is crazy. This one's even more crazy. Legendary 1 is Spirit Veil. Kitsune Rest cast makes Kiriko invulnerable for 3 seconds and cleansed of negative status effects. Yeah, that's pretty fucking crazy. Legendary 2, the Star. Protection Suzu lasts 200% longer, so you get almost 2 seconds of invulnerability from Protection Suzu. And then it also gives you 15% attack speed and 30% movement speed. That is crazy. Dark Hand is probably the best legendary that she has. Kunai now suits 2 extra Kunai projectiles. It's in a spread, like Genji's right click though, but if you get this, and these 2 extra kunai, they deal full damage. If you get this, and combine it with the explosive kunai, that give each kunai an extra 20% explosive damage, you just turn into like a better Reaper almost. Honestly, you probably are a better Reaper. If you get right up behind someone, you can just like throw kunai, all of them are gonna hit, and it will just delete their health bar. It is actually one of the most insane things in the game if you combine these 2 mutations together, the Dark Hand and the Catastrophic Kunai. Legendary 4 is the Wheel of Fortune. Casting Healing Ofuda heals Kiriko for 5% of max health. And Legendary 5 is Lifeline. Swift Step gives 100 overhealth for 15 seconds. So yeah, Kiriko is probably the favorite child of this. I don't know why, but they gave her some of the best mutations available. Consistent mutations. I feel like some of the other characters have pretty insane things they can do with the right synergy, but Kiriko's synergy with like Dark Hand and Catastrophic Kunai is on a completely different level, it feels like. Next up we have Mercy. Her common is Lingering Spell. Caduceus Staff previous healing beam targets continue to heal for up to 50 health based on how long they were attached. Common 2 is Fall from Grace. While using Angelic Descent, movement speed is increased by 15%. Common 3 is Wicked Opportunist. Guardian Angel's cooldown is reduced by 30%. And Guardian Angel buffs are really good for Mercy in this game mode because it's just really fun to be super mobile and fast. Witch's Brew increases all healing done by 10%. Common 5 is Dire Need. Increases all healing done to targets below 50% health by 25%. Rare 1 is Witch's Broom. Valkyrie's duration increased by 25%. Rare 2 is Double Double. Caduceus Staff's Healing Beam links to a second nearby ally for 25% of its effect. Rare 3 is Toil and Trouble, which is Caduceus Staff Damage Boost links to a second nearby ally for 40% of its effect. Rare 4 is Omnipresent. Guardian Angel's range is increased by 50%. And Rare 5 is Death from Above. While in the air, gain 10% increased damage and 15% increased attack speed. This one is really good because we will get to the centerpiece of a really good Mercy build in a bit. But for her epics, we have Sustained Servant. Press reload to deal a burst 100 heal for your current staff target, or heal and buff 10-second cooldown. Epic 2, Mend and Mar. This is the crazy one. Mercy heals all allies within 20 meters for 100% of the damage she deals. This effect increases to 200% while Valkyrie is active. This is crazy. If you want to play Battle of Mercy and you see this, you can just instantly put away the healing staff for good and just go around blasting people and just AoE healing your team off of it. You can stack some of the healing modifiers that impact all of your healing. It won't work with the ones that only impact your staff healing. But again, Death from Above increases your damage and attack speed while in the air. You can just be GAing around and just blasting people and doing a lot of AoE healing with this. Epic 3 is Beyond the Grave. Resurrect range increased by 5 meters. Epic 4 is Power for a Price. Caduceus Staff's damage boost heals attached targets for 8% of their damage dealt to enemies. And Epic 5 is Undying Resolve. Gives 35% max health as overhealth to resurrected player. Legendary 1 is Spark of Life. Allies attached to Caduceus Staff's damage boost have their cooldowns recharged 35% faster. Legendary 2 is Everlasting. Mercy is invulnerable while using Resurrect. Legendary 3 is A Favor Honored. Whenever Mercy or her enemies use an ultimate, Mercy instantly heals all allies for 60% of Mercy's maximum health, which is pretty good. Legendary 4 is Witch's Pact, which is honestly one of the most interesting ones. Resurrect can be cast on a living ally. If the ally dies within 10 seconds, they will be automatically revived. So yeah, you can just pre-resurrect someone before a fight if they plan on dying. And then of course, another really good and fun one to use. Legendary 5 is Witches Never Die. Gains a 300 health barrier projector upon activating Valkyrie. And this is a Winston bubble. You get like a 300 health Winston bubble that just follows Mercy around. It looks really funny. It's fun. It's goofy. It does only have 300 health, so it's not like a full strength Winston bubble, but it's still just really fun. Next up, for better DPS than most DPS heroes, we have Moira, absolute scourge of the metal ranks and everywhere basically. Nobody likes her, everybody hates her. The freaks apparently hate her. They stole her little magnetic ball. Her ferrofluid sphere was stolen by the freaks. So yeah, people really have it out for her. Her common one is Soul Stealer. Biotic Grasp's antibiotic energy generation is increased by 30%. Common 2, Spectral Recovery. While using Fade, Moira regenerates 20% of health. Common 3 is Essence Reserve, so Moira can store an additional 30 biotic energy beyond her base maximum of 100. Common 4 is Frenzied Fade. While using Fade, movement speed is increased by 60%. This is really good. The 2 Fade buffs are really funny to play with and really goofy. You can go anywhere you want with them. So this one is good. Common 5 is Focused Affliction. Moira deals 15% more damage to enemies that are being damaged by the biotic orb. I don't think this is that good. Her damage is like 50. 50 plus 15% is just an extra like 7.5 damage that you're getting. I don't think that's really worth a mutation slot, being that it's a conditional effect. Rare 1 is Concentrated Coalescence. Coalescence's duration is increased by 30%. And Moira can build Coalescence really fast. It's a really cheap ultimate, so it's maybe one of the few ultimates you can actually build towards and realistically build over the course of a round, even if you are on the losing end of some fights. Rare 2 is Wicked Whirlwind. Fade cooldown is decreased by 20%. Rare 3 is Greater Gales. Biotic Orbs have 35% increased healing and damage rate. This does not increase the total damage they deal, it just increases how fast they deal that damage. If you don't know how Moira Orbs work, they have a fixed amount of damage or healing that they can deal. The healing orbs can heal for up to 350 maximum, and the damage orbs can deal up to 200 damage maximum. So this just increases how fast they are able to deal that damage out, not the total amount that they can deal. Rare 4 is Siphon Strike. Quick melee restores 10% of max biotic energy. Rare 5 is Frightening Fascination. Secondary Fire's range is increased by 25%, but stays locked to targets at a 50% narrower angle. This one is really not that good. Because Moira's Secondary Fire is a lock-on and not a beam, it takes a very brief moment of someone being in range before it actually attaches to them and starts dealing damage. And the 50% narrower angle is kind of really punishing for, you know, such a small benefit as 25% more range. It's kind of not going to be worth it a lot of the time. Even my friend that's top 500, like, damage from Overwatch 1, who plays tank and top 500 with me in Overwatch 2, he hated this one and just found it to be not worth it. Epic 1 is Screaming Cyclone. Coalescence grants free flight while active. Ultimate requirement is decreased by 5%. Fun to use, you can just fly around with Coalescence. Epic 2, All That Remains. If a current secondary fire target dies, Moira spawns a damaging biotic orb at their location. So just, if you are currently sucking someone off when they die, it gives an orb. It just makes an orb appear there. They just turn into the orb. You sucked so good that they just turned into orb. Logic. That was what I learned in my high school education. Epic 3 is Otherworldly Orbs. Activating Biotic Orb while on cooldown explodes all active Biotic Orbs, healing health or dealing damage equal to 50% of the orb's remaining capacity. I don't think the range on these is that big, and I don't think it's that worth it because of that. Epic 4 is Waning Vitality. Secondary Fire reduces the damage of its target by 5% each second up to 25%. Epic 5 is Phantom Fade. Fade lasts 1.5 seconds longer. This is really fun to use with the one that increases your movement speed, because you can just zoom across the map. Legendary 1 is Hastened Horror. The Healing Biotic Orb increases allies' attack speed by 15% and movement speed by 20%. Legendary 2 is Equilibrium. While using Healing Biotic Grasp, holding down Secondary Fire increases healing by 200%, but reduces movement speed by 30%. This is fucking crazy. As far as I can tell, I don't think it consumes any additional resource. It's just, what if you could heal 200% more as Moira? It's just crazy effective. Legendary 3 is Banshee's Howl. While using Coalescence, Moira can hold Primary Fire or Secondary Fire to make the beam purely healing or damaging, with 50% greater effectiveness. Legendary 4 is Fading Breath. When Moira fades, spawn a stationary version of the most recently used Biotic Orb, and of course Legendary 5, Doppelgangers. Biotic Orb now suits 3 orbs in a spread. The 2 additional orbs each have 50% less capacity, so the total amount of damage or healing that these bonus orbs provide is 50% less. So they'd either be able to heal for 175 each, or damage for up to 100 damage each. But still really good because they can all deal their damage at the same rate at the same time, meaning that especially if you pick up the mutation that increases the rate at which they deal their damage or healing, I think that if you go behind someone and let loose all 3 orbs, it will deal like 200 damage per second. The 2 extra orbs will quickly run out of juice, but that's a lot of damage per second, and you can absolutely just nuke people into oblivion with this ability. And finally, for the last hero, we have my son, my favorite character to main in ranked, alongside Lucio, Zenyatta, and he has some very, very fun things. Hallowed Speed. Harmony Orb buffs target with 25% movement speed. Common 2, Plagued by Doubt. Enemies affected by Discord deal 15% less damage. And a lot of these effects are pretty damn good considering that he has a lot of other mutations that give him multiple orbs, both healing and Discord, and also ways to put them on multiple people at the same time. So these get a lot more valuable once you pick up those other mutations. Common 3 is Poisoned Mind. Critical hits trigger a poison cloud centered on Discord orb target. Common 4 is Cruel Lesson. Destruction Orb secondary fire charges 1 second faster, but adds a 4-second cooldown. In addition, you can hold your maximum charge for longer. Common 5 is Absolution. Critical hits trigger a healing cloud for 30 health centered around Harmony Orb target. Now for his rares, Rare 1 is Eternal Oblivion. Increase the duration of your ultimate by 3 seconds. Again, as I've said, I don't think the ultimate ones are nearly that good because you will only get them once in a game. Meanwhile, some of the other ones will always make your character stronger, no matter what you're doing. Endless Cycle. Refund 1 ammo on critical hit. Rare 3 is Recurring Nightmare. Gain 2% increased destruction orb damage for each time you hit an enemy. Lasts 5 seconds or until you reload. Stacks up to 10 times. Rare 4 is Darkness's Light. Targets affected by Discord Orb give extra 50% of the ult charge when attacked. That is also not proper English, but oh well. Rare 5 is Light's Darkness. Players affected by Harmony Orb get a 15% attack speed buff. Now we have the fun ones. Epic 1, Harmonious. Gain 1 additional Harmony Orb. Does not stack. So you can't put them both on the same person, but you can just have it on 2 different people at the same time. Epic 2 is Discordant. Gain 1 additional Discord Orb. Does not stack. So you can just have 2 enemies discorded at the same time. Epic 3 is Entropy. Criticals increase your attack speed by 15% for 5 seconds. Stacks 3 times. I feel like this is much better than the damage one. Of course, you can always stack them together to get a hardcore damage build. But if you're going more for the orb-centered playstyle, I feel like this is definitely the one you should be looking for if you want to increase your damage. Epic 4 is Reborn Spirit. Allies affected by Transcendence have their cooldowns recharged 75% faster. Again, it's an ultimate one. I personally just don't like them that much unless they do something unique to the ultimate and make it more fun to use. And then Epic 5 is Destructive Mantra. You can charge up to 3 additional Destruction Orbs. So now your right click, instead of being a 5 orb, it's now an 8 orb, which is pretty funny. Legendary 1 is Spectral Guardian. This is where it gets kind of crazy. Using either ability 1 or 2 while charging secondary fire places a Harmony or Discord orb on allies and enemies in a frontal cone that lasts 10 seconds. Now this seems crazy because you can just put multiple orbs on multiple people by pressing an ability while charging your secondary fire. That being said, I was not offered this in any of my games playing Zenyatta, so I cannot tell you how good it actually is. That would be best left to someone else. The description makes it seem insane, but like, is there a cooldown to it? Do you have to charge a certain amount, or can I just charge for half a second and then just press the ability to do it and just place the orb on everyone? And then just do it again for Discord Orb. I don't know. There's a lot of questions with how this ability works that I just don't know the answer to. But on paper, it seems pretty fucking crazy. Especially, you know, stacking it with some of the other Discord and Harmony mutations that are available. Legendary 2 is Shattered Soul. When shields are depleted, release an energy pulse that knocks back enemies and increases your movement speed for 20% for 5 seconds. This one is actually kind of really bad, because as Zenyatta, a vast majority of your health is sealed health. If you run out of shields, you have 75 health. At maximum, odds are the damage you took will probably put you closer to like 30 or 40. This isn't going to do anything to save you. You're still just going to die. It's not really that good. There are so many better options for Zenyatta. Like Legendary 3, Ascension. Gain 200% of your non-sealed health as extra shields. So you have Zenyatta, who now has an extra 150 shields at all time just for fun. You just have 400 health Zenyatta. This is like one of the best ones in the entire game because it's just a free 150 health. It's crazy. Legendary 4 is Unknown Horror. Transcendence also applies Discord's debuff to nearby enemies. And then Legendary 5 is pretty good. Master and Disciple. Zenyatta gains a 50% effective Harmony Orb on himself, and his ally Harmony Orb has 20% increased healing effectiveness. So not only does Zenyatta finally get his own little orb that he can take care of like a little pet, he also just improves his ally orbs as well, just as a little bonus. So yeah, pretty good, especially if you have stuff like the increased movement speed for Harmony Orb targets, or the 15% attack speed buff for Harmony Orb targets, then yeah, this legendary gets even better. Or if you have 400 health Zenyatta who now just constantly self-heals, that's also really good. And yeah, without the way, that is every single mutation available in Junkenstein's laboratory. If you're wondering why this is so long, it's because there were 260 of these things. And that is also why it took a few days to make this, once I realized that there wasn't anything available online other than a very poorly translated Chinese wiki page. So yeah, hopefully you enjoyed. The game mode should be available for another 2 weeks, and of course if it ever comes back in the future, which I'm really hoping it does. The roguelike elements add so much to this game mode, and there's a lot of really unique things you can do and different builds you can make, and it's just fun. I hope they find a way to try and extend it towards more maps, like let you get an upgrade every like 10 eliminations or something like that, or that would be really steamrolly. So maybe just have it be based on time or something like that, or make it like Flashpoint and have like a little area where people can just do it quickly in between fights. I don't know. I just want to see them expand on this game mode because it's probably one of the cooler things that they've done, and I want to see more of it in the future. That's why I felt it was kind of worth it to make something like this, even though it took me a whole weekend of running through the game mode and trying to get a screenshot of every single ability. So yeah, if you enjoyed my suffering for this, please like and subscribe if you feel like it, and I'll see you later. Goodbye.